Jumping on. I hope you had a great weekend. I did. It just went fast. I was actually thinking today's Monday when it's really Tuesday and we are going. So I'll give Facebook and YouTube a couple minutes to jump on. And today we're going to be talking about failure to launch. This is a real thing. It's not just a movie, but it is a real thing. And it's not pertaining just to launching a product or a ministry or a business. It's pertaining to launching your life and how things like procrastination and overthinking and perfectionism oftentimes contribute to our inability to launch. So, for those of you guys who are new to my broadcast, my name is Dr. Faith Wokoman. I love helping create resources and tools for believers to grow into their purpose and identity. I do through my training. Um, in clinical psychology, as well as over 17 years of ministry, developing and coaching people. So, is what I'm passionate about. So, it's good to see you guys on. We're going to get right to it. So, one thing about me is that I don't really like to dilly dally. Just let's just get to it, right? We're talking about failure to launch. So, the failure to launch syndrome is an actual thing. It's not just a movie, like I said earlier, but it's not necessarily something that you're going to find in the diagnostic manuals or anything like that. But it is a way to describe people, and specifically young adults who are having a hard time transitioning into adulthood. But it is also a way that we describe people who are unable to launch into whatever God is calling them to. So failure to launch is not just an inability to grow up, but it's also the inability to step into our destiny, the inability to say yes to the Lord, the inability to step into the fullness of what God is calling you to do that. And I have found that people struggle with launching into the fullness of who they are, due to a number of reasons. So that's what I want to talk about today: our failure to launch into purpose, into the things that God has called us to. Now, when you look at this failure to launch from the inability to grow up, you have things like the people generally have a poor work ethic, and that could cause us, an inability to launch forward. I think one of the things that stops a lot of people is the fear of how much work something is going to be, right? And so there are things that God has called you to do, and there are places that He's called you to go, but some of us are not going because we think it's going to be too much work. Me and our volunteer coordinator at church talk about this all the time. They're like, I don't know. They feel like if they do this, it's going to be too much work. If they join a team, it might be too much work. But that's one of the lies of the enemy that gets us to a point where we're so gripped by fear and so gripped of the what if that we actually don't step into the purpose. So the fear of too much work is usually because we don't have all the information. So one of the ways to overcome fear, one of the ways to overcome paralysis into stepping into something is trying to get as much information as possible. Now, on the other hand, what happens with certain temperaments is that they want all the information. They want to know exactly how it's going to work out. And God doesn't move like that. There's a lot of things where we're going to have to trust Him, where we're going to have to take a step of faith, where we're just going to have to say yes to God and see it kind of work out. So yeah, somebody said that's me, right? Like, oh, this looks like it's going to be too much work. I'm not going to do it. But the truth is you're overthinking the process. And the reason why we overthink it is because we think we have to do it out of our own strength. So a lot of times when people are having a hard time launching is that they think they have to launch by themselves. They don't think about the people they can bring around them. They don't think about the Holy Spirit who wants to help them, who wants to guide them, right? And so the overwhelm of how much work is going to be. And it is a lie of the enemy, because I have learned this over and over, that things are never as bad as we think they're going to be. But this is how the enemy works. He knows that if he can get you at your thought life, then he can paralyze you from moving forward. If he can convince you, it's going to be overwhelming. If he can convince you, it's going to be too much work. If he can convince you, right? So what you need to begin to say is, you know what? It may be a lot of work, but I'm up for the challenge. You know what? I may be thinking this, but it probably isn't true. And the other way is that you just get around people who've done it. Get around people who are doing it right now so that you can challenge that fear that it's going to be too much work. So one of the things that prevents us from launching and stepping into destiny is that we actually have a poor work ethic. We don't want to work. We don't want to put in the work. We feel like it's going to be too much. And so we stop before we even start. The other thing that we see with people that have a failure to launch is that they have a low distress tolerance. They don't like to be uncomfortable. They don't like to be in the place of the unknown. They don't like not having all the information. And so that distress about, I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know who's going to be there. I don't know if this business is going to succeed is too much for them, that they would rather be comfortable than have the distress of the what if. And so one of the ways that you've got to do, one of the things you've got to do is you've got to build up what we call your inner core. Your inner core is your esteem, your belief system, who you are inside. And one of the ways that we do that is we do that by doing hard things, right? I love this quote that's going around that says, I do hard things. We don't want to do hard things, but it's only in doing hard things that our capacity is enlarged and we are stretched and we go to the next level. There's nothing that I have done that was rewarding that wasn't hard. Ask me about being married, right? It is rewarding, but it can be hard work. I love my friends, Ginger and her husband say marriage is not hard work, it's good work. I think that's the other perspective that we have to change, right? That even though it's hard work, if it's good work, I am willing to do it. The reason why we don't jump, we don't launch is because we're just thinking about how hard it's going to be, but it's actually good work, right? And so marriage is good work, but you put work into it. Building a business is hard work. There is the first several months, it's going to be hard work. We have to not be afraid of doing hard things. You need to begin to declare of yourself, I can do hard things. I was made to do hard things. If not, you're going to keep failing at launching. We're getting ready to do our 3-day summit. It's coming up February 1st through the 4th. And part of that summit is helping people launch in their business, in their ministry, in their career. But one of the things is you can take as many courses, as many summits as you want. But if you're not willing to put in the hard work, your launch is going to fail. Whether it's launching as a young adult to leave your parents' house, or launching a ministry, launching a business, launching a marriage, launching a beautiful family, you've got to be willing to do the hard work. So relieving the distress. The distress is the fear of not being comfortable. It's the fear of it being harder than you can accept, but also knowing that I can do hard things. And oftentimes when you're launching something, it is just in the immediate. It's not always going to be like that. It gets easier. And so one of the ways you do this is by positive self-talk. You've got to talk to yourself. You've got to tell yourself, self, right? I can do hard things. Self, I can launch this thing. I can step into this thing that God is calling me to step into. Then this is a big one that I see all the time that prevents people from launching: low level of persistence. Do you know what persistence is? The ability to keep going in the same direction over a period of time. That is also my definition of success. Success is the ability to go in the same direction over a period of time. Why do we celebrate people who've been married for 50 years? Because they were persistent in their marriage. Why do we celebrate people that have maybe hit 1,000, members somewhere in their church or whatever? Because they've been persistent. Or 25 years of service. They were persistent. They didn't quit when the hard got going, right? They got going when the hard got going. They didn't give up. And once again, this is an internal fortitude. Most people are not persistent because maybe they failed at some point and they feel like they're going to fail again, or they just don't like hard work, which is what we just talked about, the fear of distress or discomfort, which you have to be willing to say, I was made for hard things and I am willing to be persistent. Now, the other thing that causes people to not be persistent is they don't have a clear vision, right? Like 1 minute, God told me to do this. The next minute, I don't know if God told me to do this. The next minute, yes, I heard God. The next minute, I don't know if I heard God, right? And so you've got to be clear. I tell singles this all the time. Either you want to be married or you don't want to be married, right? Oh, I want to be married. I believe that's the Lord. The next month, well, it doesn't matter if it happens. I'm good being single. It's okay to say, this is what I want. Because when we're clear about what we want and what we want to do, we're more likely to be persistent in those areas. But double-mindedness always attacks persistence. And part of double-mindedness is a lack of vision. Why we have no vision is because we haven't mastered God's voice. Everything goes back really to the same, three things. You got to know who you are in God. You got to know how he speaks to you, and you got to grow in confidence in that. And so we fail to launch, whether it's a business, whether it's a ministry, whether it's a marriage, whether it's whatever God is calling us into, because we're unwilling to be persistent, even when it doesn't look like it. Vision is a picture of the future. And so when you have clear vision of what the future entails, then you can persist in the hard moments. That's why the prophetic is so important. That's why it's important for you to be in a prophetic house, in a place where you can be encouraged and you can be exhorted, you can be built up. And it's so exciting because I shared with you guys about our 4-day summit that's coming up. And one of the things I'm going to do during that summit, I have never done on a summit that we do through our business, but I felt the Lord this year, he said, I'm giving you permission to prophesy. And so we have a prayer day that last Saturday. Once we have coached you, trained you in how to launch, how to change your mindset, how to find your audience, how to build whatever you're building, we're going to have a time of prayer and declaration and just release. And so you have to get in a place where you can hear the voice of God. You have to get in a place where things can be confirmed in your spirit about what God is saying to you. Prophetic, prophecy comes to give direction. It comes to give insight into your future. And that's why it's so important. So we've talked about 3 things so far. Why people have a hard time launching. They have a poor work ethic. They don't want to do the hard work. They have a low distress tolerance. They don't like to be uncomfortable. They don't like that in-between stage where things are not exactly what you thought they were going to be. And then that leads to a lack of persistence, right? Where they keep going even when it gets hard, right? The other thing is that we have high expectations of others, but we don't put those same expectations on ourselves. And so when people fail to launch, they oftentimes are sad and they feel really upset because other people are going ahead and maybe they're moving along, or the people they expected to support them are not supporting them. So they have these expectations of help and support, and they don't get that help and that support, and then they quit. They don't want to do it anymore because nobody's helping me, nobody's supporting me, nobody's running with you. One thing about this, that when God gives you a vision, he gives you a vision. I have learned that as a pastor, as an apostolic leader. I've learned that as a business owner. There is not going to be anybody who has more buy-in in the vision that God has for you than you. And I thank God for the people that God has brought around us at church and even in our business that say, you know what? Your vision is our vision. Like what you see is what we see. And God is sending us here to help make it come to pass. But the truth is, it's not going to start like that. And so I love that the Lord, he freed me from that very long ago, because I would get really frustrated with people because they wouldn't put in the same amount of effort or the same amount of work in the vision that God had given me. But honestly, they were given to me as help. They weren't given the vision. indirectly. There's a difference when you get it. And so you cannot expect other people to always cheer you on. You cannot expect other people to always support you. If you struggle with that, which is connected to people pleasing is twofold. People pleasing is when we do things for people, right, to please them. But the truth is, the reason why you're doing that is that you get your identity from the thank yous. You get your identity from what people say about you. Like, oh, she's so helpful. He's so kind. He's always there. He always says yes. And so, yes, on the outside, it looks like, yeah, you're struggling with people pleasing. But really, what you're struggling with is a lack of identity. Because if you said no, you feel like if I say no, if I, put some boundaries around this, then they're not going to love me anymore. They're not going to want me anymore. And so what do? You do things in order for people to be proud of you, to be pleased with you. But then it turns against you because you say to yourself, I'm just doing this because I love people. But when people don't reciprocate it, then you get offended. Then you get hurt. Then you lack motivation. Then you lack persistence. So all of us really need to do a motive check. The reason why we lack motivation sometimes is because our motives are off. Write that down. Sometimes we lack motivation because our motives are off. And we say, well, I'm discouraged now. Well, it's because you were thinking that people were going to do the same for you, and they didn't, and therefore you're upset with them, and now you're not going to go forward. Let me take a sip of water on that one. So you cannot be motivated by outside people. You cannot be motivated by the expectations that you've put on people. And this is the worst thing. When we have expectations of people, but we never communicated them. We never communicated that we wanted them to help us. We never communicated that we were thinking that they would actually come to the opening of our store, right? And so then we get discouraged and we don't move forward. We failed to launch because we weren't properly motivated, and we weren't properly motivated because we didn't communicate our expectations to the people that we were hoping would help motivate us, right? So it's a cycle. It's a cycle. And if this is a blessing to you, please share it. Share it on your timeline. Share it with your friends. We got a couple more and we're going to round up. We're talking about failure to launch, launching our identity, launching our purpose, launch our ministry, business, why people constantly start things and they don't finish, or why people haven't fully actualized who they are. They haven't become the fullness of who God called them to become. The next one, oh Jesus, this is another one. Failure to take responsibility for our failures. Failure to take responsibility for our failures. People who have failure to launch, right, oftentimes will blame other people and never see where there were a mistake. When somebody comes to me and says, oh, my marriage didn't work out. He was this, he was that. I'll say, well, tell me about you. What were some of the concerns that they had? Because generally, when a marriage ends, it's not just one-sided, unless, it was just one person didn't want to go to therapy or they didn't want to change. Then you can say, okay, yeah, it's one-sided, right? But usually both parties have had a part in it. And so when we're building something with God, for God, we also have to be able to look at where we could have done something differently. The most successful people don't let their failures trip them up. We look at failures as an opportunity to evaluate what we did wrong, what we did right, and how to move forward. But if you have, and guess what? This is all rooted down to, again, guys, this is all goes back to identity. You know why? You know why you're not willing to take responsibility? You know why you're not willing to go back and examine your failure? Because you view yourself as a failure because you failed at one thing. Our identity is not clear. When we're true sons, we know that we're loved by God regardless. We know that he is for us regardless. And so when we do something, when we launch out, when we try something and it doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that there is something wrong with us. There is something wrong with our systems. But some of us are so broken and so fractured that even someone saying there's something wrong with your systems impacts you so dearly. But you're never going to be able to fully launch into who God has called you to be, that ministry, that business, if you're not willing to evaluate the areas in which you failed in, if you're not willing to own up to those mistakes. One thing I cannot stand is when people do not take responsibility for anything. And a lot of times when people have a hard time taking responsibility is because they struggle with people's perception of them. If I take responsibility for this, then how are they going to view me? Then they're not going to view me as a success. They're not going to view me as someone who has it together. But this is just even a little tip for those of you guys who are in ministry, those of you guys that lead people. It is more honorable when you can say, you know what, y'all, I messed up on this one. The plan that I had was so clear, but it did not work out. Then you blaming everybody else and you not taking it up. Because then people can trust you as someone they can be vulnerable with, that they can be open with, because you're willing to own up to your mistakes. Until you're willing to own up to where you fell in your process to launch, you're going to fail. You're going to fail at that same place. Until you own up and examine your process of launching, whether it's a business, whether it's your life, whether it's a ministry, you're always going to fail in that same place. And one of the things that we're going to do for you guys during our 3M summit, right? It's a 4-day summit, is we're going to talk about a launch process, a launch process. What do you need to do from point A to point Z to successfully launch a ministry, to successfully launch a business, to successfully launch your life, right? As you're looking through that launch process that we're going to give you during this summit, you're going to be able to examine yourself. I realize, and I'm still learning stuff. I've been launching products, courses for a very long time. But guess what? Every time we do a launch, we have to evaluate why we met our goals, why we didn't meet our goals. And I got some big goals this year. I got some big goals. And so guess what I have to do? I have to rewire my launch system. That's why we have Jamal Miller joining us during that 3-day summit. He is a launch strategist. We have people like Lola tomorrow who are joining us, who have helped launch like 8-figure companies. You've got to get around people who've launched successfully in order to launch. And this is even your personal life. Like, get around people who are where you want them to be to get there. So I'll share a bit about the summit when I finish. I have 2 more, and then I'm going to take your questions. I'll answer your questions about the summit that's coming up in 3 weeks as well. All right. So we talked about lack of vision, and then this is a huge one. This is a huge one. Lack of skills. Most of us are not launching successfully, whether it's into adulthood, whether it's in our marriage, whether it's in business, whether it's in whatever, because we don't have the information that we need. We don't have the proper information to properly launch, right? You cannot say, okay, we're going to launch a little plane. I'm imagining my kids had this toy, right? That you put on this launcher and then you have to press it and then it, shoots up in the air. But if you didn't know you need to press it for it to shoot up, you're going to be looking at that plane on that launcher and wondering why the launcher isn't launching it. And you don't know the part that you're supposed to be praying. Some of us have all the systems. We have all the things that we need, but we're missing one piece, one piece. It might be in your mindset. It might be in your systems. It might be in your process, right? And usually once you get that one piece, you're like, oh, I get it, right? It could be in how I'm thinking. It could be how I'm approaching it. But you've got to get to the people who have the information to give you what you need in order to launch. A lot of times people are like, I'm waiting for God to tell me what I'm supposed to do for my life. No, you probably need a coach, a strategist, or a prophet, somebody who can pray with you, somebody who can assess your talents, your gifts, your resources, and give you language, right? God rarely comes down and sits in front of you and tells you what to do. He's giving you the Bible, he's giving you the Holy Spirit, and he's giving you people. Write it down. God has given me the Bible, he's given me the Holy Spirit, and he's given me people. And oftentimes when we're not where we're supposed to be, either we haven't engaged the Holy Spirit, we haven't engaged the Bible, or we haven't engaged the right people. And part of engaging the right people is making investments to be in front of the people that we need, making investments to take time out and listen to simple teachings like this. I mean, people get a lot of stuff from the free things that I do, but there's also levels of strategies that come for things that you pay for, right? And that's for another day. We're going to talk about that another day. I made a post yesterday and I was talking about how I am a sum total of all of my teachers, all of my coaches, all of my pastors, and all of my mentors. Some of my teachers cost me $100,000. You know why? Because I have a doctorate, right? But I'm a sum total of them, those school loans, right? I have pastors, I have coaches, I have people that at some point I invested something to get where I am. So I'm going to take your questions around failure to launch, but I want to share with you guys, I've talked about it already. February 1st through the 4th. I've never done this before, but we took our business course and we put it in 4 days instead of 6 weeks. And we want to help ministries, ministers, business owners, entrepreneurs, individuals who are trying to get to the next place in their life successfully launch. It is Wednesday night mindset. Thursday at lunch, we have a working lunch where you're going to get a worksheet where we're going to work through your vision, mission, strategy. Thursday night is all about marketing, finding your people group. How do you go forward? Friday is all about leadership, developing your capacity, 12 noon. That night, it's how do I create a course? How do I create an event that is successful? And then that Saturday morning, I am actually going to do, like I said, I rarely do this. We're going to tie things up, answering your question, and then we're going to pray collectively for people. There are already people who signed up for VIP spots. I never open, well, rarely open VIP spots because I don't have time to meet with people one-on-one, but we already have 14 taken. We have about 8 left. If you've been like, I need to meet with you, Dr. Faith, this is your chance to do it. So I'm going to put up that banner. The information's in the descriptions. You can sign up for that. It's only 3 weeks from now, and we're only taking 100 people. So this is not one of those things that we're going to be marketing for months. You're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. And so we want to encourage you. There is a payment plan for those that need that. And you want to make sure that you jump on that very, very quickly. So, all right, your questions, you can drop them at hashtag Q on the bottom. I would love to answer them around just breaking the procrastination, the fear, people pleasing. How do you step into what God has for you? Make sure that you put a Q in front of your question so that I can answer it. Yes. All right. How to bounce back after losing time and resources when your launch was not as successful as you anticipated. You assess how much you lost, you assess why you lost it, and then you get in a place where you get a new launch strategy and you relaunch, right? Not every launch is successful, but you got to assess where you went wrong, what you could have done differently. So we have new marks that we want to hit in our launches this year. And guess what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to put out more money. Like, it's just simple as that. But we realize that after meeting with a coach and a strategist and saying, okay, yeah, well, we've been getting these results based on what we did. Sometimes it's not about putting out more money. Sometimes it's about shifting your audience. Sometimes it's about shifting your message. And those are the things we're going to help you, figure out during the summit. What is my audience? How do I find them? How do I shift so that when you launch, you're actually launching to people? This is the same thing with preaching. It's not just about a business product, because you could have a great word and nobody's hearing you because you're talking to the wrong people. Questions. Okay. How do you remain patient in the process of while you're launching into your call? Celebrate the small victories. Celebrate the small victories. Man, I was able to teach Bible study today. That's amazing. Man, they've asked me to help lead the teams. This is really, really great. Man, I've had an opportunity to minister to people at the grocery store. You celebrate the small victories while you're launching into whatever the Lord is calling you into. Don't just think about the big picture. I haven't fully actualized everything that God has called me to do. I have a calling that is way beyond where I am right now. And so what I'm doing right now is preparing, is strategizing. Some of y'all have emailed me and said, oh, I see you on TV. Oh my gosh, I got words that are out of this world. I'm not ready for them yet, but I can celebrate where I am right now. The problem is we get these words or we get these ideas and we want to get there overnight, and we don't realize that there's a process, and we have to celebrate those victories when we're getting there. Guys, make sure that you put a Q in front of your question so that I know it's actually a question. How to tie your testimony into your business without oversharing? Well, first of all, what is your testimony and what is your business, right? That's the starting point. So part of my business is I help people launch businesses, and I'll share my financial victories sometimes, because people need to trust that you actually make money in order for you to teach them how to make money, right? So I know that part of it. I'm a preacher. I mentor and I pastor people. Sometimes I share those aspects of whatever I've gone through because it's going to help them. So this is the same thing we give our life coaches. Do not share unless it's going to be helpful. right? And do not share if it's going to point right back to you. Do not share if it's all about you. If it's going to help them and help them either trust or build your credibility or help the person, then go ahead and share it. How can I manage different things like work and a side business? Time management, right? Time management. And we'll talk a little bit about this in the summit, but really I call it chunking your time. If I work at 9 to 5, and maybe I'm just giving you the benefit of the doubt that maybe you have to come home, you have a husband and children from 5 to 9, you're working with them. And then from 9 to 11, you're working your side business. Maybe it's not that easy or that fluid. So then Saturday mornings, I wake up early because I'm willing to sacrifice for my business until it can fully launch. I wake up at 6 till 9 o'clock to work on my business. You just need to assign purpose to all of the hours in your life. If the hours in your life don't have purpose, you're going to waste time. All right. Questions. How to launch, how to successfully go forward in what God is calling you to. Oh, good. Investing in your courses has been the best recent investments I've made. Thank you. Thank you, Angel. Yeah, people always say, you know what? Yeah, I've wasted a lot of money elsewhere, and this has been super helpful. How do you prioritize multiple business ideas? So, this is one of the things that we'll spend quite a bit of time helping you find a viable business idea. But I always give these 4 things that you need to assess. Does it require money, and do I have it? Does it require a lot of time, and do I have it? Does it have a lot of expertise? Do I have it? And does it require an anointing of some sort? And do I have it? If I have 3 of the 4, then you can probably launch at that time. If you only have 2, I would wait and say this is not a viable business idea for this season. All right. Yay, good, Charlene. I look forward to coaching you. She said, I have my VIP spot. And so the people who sign up for VIP do the summit, and then they will have a 1-hour coaching session with me as well. All right. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm getting all the questions between Facebook and Instagram as well. Someone said, thank you for today. You welcome. You welcome. All right. So I want to just quickly, yeah, okay, there we go. How do you know which idea to launch first? The same way I just answered. Do I have money? Do I have expertise? Do I have time? Do I have resources? If I have 3 out of 4, I'll go there. I have paralyzing fear of stepping forward due to perfectionism. It's debilitating. Would you recommend inner healing? Yeah, perfectionism is I worry about what people think, right? Excellence is I worry about what God thinks. So the reason why we struggle with perfectionism is because we struggle with people pleasing, right? We're worried about how people perceive us. So you have to identify the thoughts that you have around how people perceive you. You have to uproot them. You have to replace them with the truth, and then you rehearse the truth. So for some of you guys who joined the Your Money, Your Mind workshop that we did last week, that's some of the stuff that we walked through, re-engaging the truth over lies that you've believed that keep you in patterns and in cycles. Yeah, you got it. She wrote it down. Do I have money, resources, time, expertise, and anointing? 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5. All right. Wonderful teaching, Dr. Faith. Thank you. You welcome. You welcome. You welcome. I want to see all of you guys in the summit. It's going to be amazing. I've brought in 3 experts around leadership, around business, around ministry, and around mindset, 4, including myself. And we want to help you launch, not only launch, but scale and build something meaningful. And so we really want to invite you to be a part of that. I don't speak in the same verbiage as you, so I'm playing catch up on your courses. Help me with this. Do you speak English at all? I'm not sure when you say the same verbiage. I don't know if you speak of another language, and that's why I'm asking that. But all of our students are from all around the world, right? So we have people that are Asian, we have people that are from Europe. And so there's, of course, going to be cultural differences. But if you speak English, I'm not sure exactly where the hindrance would be, but you can expound on that. What is some advice in stewarding serving in one ministry while launching your own ministry? 1, communicating to your pastors that you're launching your own ministry. 2, making sure that that ministry doesn't already exist in the church because you might be the missing piece that they need. And then 3, just balancing your time. If they're like, cool, go for it. We support you. Just balancing your time really. And really just making sure, because one of the things that I've seen and I've talked about is that there has to be a need for collaboration in this generation. I see a lot of people starting stuff that already exists when you could just collaborate with someone who's already further, and that will take you further. And so really making sure that it is something that you need to start, so that it could be fruitful. What is the price for couples? We didn't have a couples price. I may be willing to do something for you. You can email support at askdrfaith.com. If both you and your husband want to join the 3M Summit, or you and your wife, we can do something for couples, but we didn't have a price for that. The information is in our bio for those of you guys who are just on Instagram, and also in the description. How do you overcome the fear of failure that is holding us back from launching? So that's what I just taught on this morning. You can go back and review some of the things that I shared. Is starting a business for everyone? Can you launch in your career? Yes. No. Everybody's not supposed to start a business. Everybody's not supposed to start a business. Now, one of the fastest ways to build wealth, though, is owning your own thing, right? But they are wealthy people who've worked within a company for a very long time. And there are things that you need to do to launch to the next level, whether it's in the next promotion, launch into another part of your industry, right? That's really, really important as well. And you have people who failed to launch within their career. They're too afraid to ask for that raise. They're too afraid to put in the work to go to the next level. They're too afraid to switch career paths that will take them somewhere further. So those are all failures to launch within a career path. But no, not everybody's supposed to start a business. But it is one way to gain wealth quicker, if you're good at what you do. But if you have within a 9 to 5 window, you should be launching, and you should be moving from glory to glory as a believer. All right. She said, I come from the streets, so I'm learning how to speak using the correct words and have a fear. Oh, okay. You know what? Ask the Lord. The Lord said, when you don't know what to say, He will give you the words. And then your history might be part of your audience, right? One of my good friends is Sophia Ruffin, and she always talks about how she hated how she sounded early on, right? But how you're wired, how you're made, that's part of your message. It's part of who you are. Now, obviously, there are going to be requirements to sharpen yourself to get in certain rooms, right? You do have to have, make sure you're speaking properly to communicate to certain people. But I don't want people to ever just discard where they came from, because that is part of your message, part of your testimony, part of whatever. But you can learn, you can take classes, you can be around other people that you aspire to learn from, and that kind of thing. So Teresa, welcome. I'm in need of coaching and mentorship, but have invested in so much already. Is the only way to find this to pay for it? I just moved, so I'm struggling to find someone to pour into me. Side note, I am often the poor, so I'm feeling disadvantaged. Well, if you've invested money, then you should have some resources in your belt that you can say, hey, I really want to learn from you. I do graphic designs. Can we barter? Or I am a really great organizer. Can we do this, right? I am really good at public speaking. If you don't have money anymore, maybe the mentors are willing to barter with you for whatever. The thing is that really good mentor, so the life coaching and mentoring has gotten oversaturated. So there are people out there who overprice stuff because they're just trying to, whatever. So you got to use wisdom where you sow your seed. You want to check their fruit, you want to check their longevity and all those other things. But if you don't have any more money because you've given it away to people who didn't really create a reciprocation or whatever, then see if you have talents. Time, talents, and treasure are the 3 things that we have. I want to start a small business, but have different interests and not clear of what I should pursue. How do I narrow it down? We're going to cover that during our 3M Summit. It's based on your audience. It's based on your skill set. It's based on the demand of the market. What do people need that you actually have that you can give them in this season? I've been experiencing heaviness at work since last year. I feel like stopping work and going in full ministry. How do I know if it's God or self? I launched working with orphans part-time, but I feel like doing it full-time. Well, is it being successful? Is the ministry being fruitful? Are you able to feed your family from whatever you're doing with your ministry? If it's fruitful, If people and God is being glorified and you make enough money from it to be able to feed your family, then go for it, right? But if you're saying, I'm launching into ministry, and then you're going to be struggling to make ends meet, that's probably not wise, especially if you have family that's connected to you. What ways can you determine if a hobby can be a business? There's a demand for it. People are asking you for it all the time. People tell you that you're good at it. People tell you that it should be a business. All right. You welcome, you welcome, you welcome. All right, I'm gonna jump off. I have some more recording to do for today, and so I just wanted to share these things with you. And I'll be going live a couple times a week this week, because I just want to make sure that everybody that's supposed to be part of our summit knows that it's going on and is part of it. And we're giving you guys some of the initial tools that we're gonna really delve into during the summit. Not a cue, but a testimony. Just want to thank you for your coaching years ago. I was a one-on-one student. You advised me for me to get an advanced psychology degree, and I did last May. Yay! Congratulations. And I'm always so grateful for people who seek out coaches and prophets and pastors and actually listen to them. So I'm so glad that you stepped out and you did that. That's awesome. Can you talk about spiritual stages and starting a business? I don't know exactly what that means. If you could expound on it, maybe I could do a live on it. So what do you mean spiritual stages in terms of starting a business? All right. Bless you guys. Bless you. Bless you. Look forward to talking with you later this week. Make sure you share this with somebody if it was helpful. The person who's talking about spiritual stages and business, DM me. Let me know what you're thinking. Yeah, let us know if there's areas that you guys want to go a little bit deeper in this. Shoot us a DM. We'll consider your suggestion. All right. Bless you.